Hasibili go si haya bangaya, hasibili go dwelly the way. Au waka mamana kambaya ya lele kombe. Au waka mamana kambaya ya lele kwe. Hasibili go si haya kwe de ya, hasibili go dwelly the way. Hasibili go si haya bangola, hasibili go dwelly the way. Au waka mamona kamba yala lele kumunde. Au waka mamona kamba yala lele kwe. Hasi willy go si haya kwe de ya. Hasi willy go dwelly kwe. Hasi willy go si haya bango lily. Hasi willy go dwelly kwe.
Good afternoon. My name is Helen Phillips. I'm representing the Remembrance Committee of Charleston. In 1978, a group of Charlestonians got together to celebrate and to remember the Africans who perished during the Middle Passage or the Martha. This event occurs every June on the second Saturday, and we coordinated with in Brooklyn, New York, in Panama, in Cape Coast, Ghana, in Virginia, and cities all over the United States are starting to participate. And like I said, at 12 noon, everybody says the libation at the same time. We do this libation to celebrate, I said, those ancestors who perished during the Martha, but also those ancestors that survived, and who we are their descendants. And in the ways of the old, we always have to celebrate our ancestors, because if it weren't for the ancestors, we wouldn't be here. So we celebrate those who passed, those Africans that were forced from their homes, who never made it to these shores. We celebrate those Africans that did make it to these shores. We celebrate the descendants of those Africans that overcame all the obstacles that were put in their paths to deter them physically, emotionally, and spiritually. So we do this in the way of old. Omi tutu, ana ile tutu la noche before water.
No.
Because we come from the water, we come through the water, we come over the water. Mojuba Lofi, Mojuba Bobo Isha, salute God. Mojuba Bobo Ego, I salute all of the ancestors that came through the Middle Passage. And I would like for you to remember each of those ancestors, because we, by remembering them, we honor them, we uplift them, and we let them know that they didn't live in vain. So I'd like to say, Ibaye, if you would please just call out the names of the people who have passed in your family. So Farida Gomez, Ibaye, Mildred Phillips, Ibaye, Georgiana Bryce, Ibaye, Deborah, your nephew, who just passed, Ibaye, 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 your mama, Ibaye, 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 let them hear us, Ibaye, we haven't forgotten them, Ibaye, Ibaye, may they protect and bless us, may we always honor them, Ibaye, Ibaye, Tonu, Ashe.
Thank you, Helen and Anne, for those very moving introductions to today's ceremony, honoring the dead of the Middle Passage, and the under-acknowledged contributions of generations of Africans and African-descended peoples in the Americas. on behalf of the African Literature Association, the Office of Multicultural Student Programs and Services at the College of Charleston, and the Jubilee Project, thank you all for joining us on this historic occasion, and welcome to all of you on this beautiful place. This visit resonates with a similar visit the ALA made when our annual conference took place in Dakar, Senegal in March of 1989. On that occasion, we made a pilgrimage to Gore, the most westerly point of the continent, infamous for being the site of the door of no return, from which untold thousands were crowded onto European slave trading vessels and transported to the New World. That profoundly moving pilgrimage prompted one of our members, the poet, Niyi Oshundare, to write this poem, Gore. That will be the first of our readings this evening. Our presence in this space, 24 years later, draws attention to the fact that for all its current beauty, this too is a place of memory and a site of trauma. Historians estimate that 40% of all Africans kidnapped and landed as slaves in continental North America landed in this very city of Charleston. And just a mile or so upriver from here at Ashley Ferry River was one of the many sites around the city where men, women, and children were sold directly from the boat. Although historic sites in this area and around the nation have expanded and enhanced their presentation of previously invisible histories of the African American experience, there is still a considerable acknowledgement gap in the general public understanding that fails to give due consideration to African contributions to the physical and economic landscape of the new worlds that they helped to build. This acknowledgement gap, which, as we shall hear later, was so poetically and powerfully described more than a century ago by W.E.B. Du Bois. And it shows itself, ironically, in absences of public memorials, of statuary, of street and place names honoring Africans or African Americans. In the absence even, as Toni Morrison has remarked, of such a humble thing as a bench by the road. Despite the Emancipation Proclamation of 150 years ago and the desegregation of public education here in South Carolina that the Jubilee Project is commemorating, the consequences of 2 centuries of slavery, followed by another 100 years of officially sanctioned segregation, are still with us. We believe that humanities scholars have a vital role in laying this history to rest. We believe that humanities scholars should lay this history to rest because it should not be forgotten. Not because we believe it should be forgotten, but in order to relate to it in a fuller knowledge, both of its historical facts and its contemporary implications. It goes without saying that such a commemoration is extremely uncomfortable, fraught with potential for misunderstanding and gain, which is one of the reasons why the Jubilee Project and this conference are seizing on the anniversaries of emancipation and desegregation as a catalyst for a critical commemorative process. These anniversaries enable us to confront squarely the history of slavery, resistance, and abolition as part of the literature of liberation and the law in the story of America and the world. The commemoration of the expansion of freedom is the keynote of that narrative and of the foundational place of Africans and African-descended people in that narrative. Peter Wood uses the image of the hourglass to describe Charleston's role in the African diaspora. In thinking of Charleston as the birthplace of African America, one may think of the narrow harbor entrance in terms of another, more graphic, more somatic image as the birth canal of African America. In tonight's commemorative ceremony, we remember not only the acute pain of that birth, but we also salute ancestors who, in the words of Kwame Dulce's poem, straightened their backs and shouldered their burdens in the long, uneven, and often dangerous struggle for freedom. If you would join me in a moment of silence. Please rise.
They treat me so mean, Lord. They treat me so mean, Lord. They treat me so mean, Lord. And I wish I never before. They sell my children away, Lord. They sell my children away, Lord. They sell my children away, Lord. And I wish I had never been born. Lord, how come Lord, how come Lord,
courage of a ravishing note. The Sahel's sizzling glitter uncrawls the palms beyond the fat bottom dialect of the baobab, where egrets trade first with tapering curls. And history's large-toed footprints sculpt salty tonalities on the open memory of Senegal's enchanted death. At one with the birds, clinically white, taxing down the blue tarmac of its glassy face. The sea laughs through its teeth of feathers, fans its liquid cheeks with a wardrobe of sails, before spawning the heat's tropical biceps with a ragged fancy of flying water. And sand-scared shells explode like pods, yielding finally to the seven-songed thunder of windless seas. And the Atlantic pounds the shore, a misty mob of foaming sharks. Castle. Slave castle. Stone slabs, concrete stairs, thick like a plague, deaf like an offering dome. The carnival creak of wooden floors, up, where windows open to an endless sea, and echoing orders return with insults of flaying accents. Castle. Slave castle. Eaves of ponderous iron, doors on nerveless hinges. The sea is one limitless moat of bristling waters. The bridge, one leaden law in Europe's capacious mouth. And the Atlantic pounds the shores, a misty mob of foaming sharks. Hell. Descent into hell, into the sticky blackness of hell's pit-dumb flesh pots, bodies limb to limb with the sweaty glue of deoxygenated dungeons, the wingless odors of trampled sheep, nails lengthening into scorpions, the weave's pornographic map in the atlas of stubborn shoulders, manifold Calvary on the creed of wailing stones. Down. Dog nose down. Lampless leaves, bottled rage, dusty death, reins in rust, feverish squadron of pampered mosquitoes. Down. Dog nose down. Stolen suns, stolen stars. The sky is a pebble in the leopard's eyes, each penny white under the petted feet at moments tortured by the free laughter of teasing winds. Down. Dog nose down. And the Atlantic pounds the shores, a misty mob of foaming sharks. Gory. Gory. Go Ori. The birds which sing here borrow a note from Elmina. Their nests bear a straw from the bleeding palms of Badagry, of Bagamoyo. His stripes on quilt, the wardrobes of our history. His stripes on quilt, which threads the course of absent rainbows. And the Atlantic pounds the shores, a misty mob of foaming sharks.
ce qui est à moi, c'est quelques milliers de mortiférés qui tournent en rond dans la calebasse du Nil. Et ce qui est à moi aussi, l'archipel arqué comme le désir inquiet de se nier, on dirait d'une anxiété maternelle pour protéger la ténuité plus délicate qui sépare l'une de l'autre Amérique. Et ses flancs qui secrètent pour l'Europe la bonne liqueur d'un Gulf Stream et l'un des deux versants d'incandescence entre quoi l'équateur funambule vers l'Afrique. Et mon île, non clôture, sa claire audace debout à l'arrière de cette Polynésie. Devant elle, la Guadeloupe fendue en deux de sa raie dorsale et de même misère que nous. Haïti, où la négritude se mit debout pour la première fois et dit qu'elle croyait à son humanité. Et la comique petite queue de la Floride où d'un nègre s'achève la strangulation. Et l'Afrique gigantesquement chenillant jusqu'aux pieds hispaniques de l'Europe, sa nudité où la mort fauche à larges andins. Et je me dis, Bordeaux et Nantes et Liverpool et New York et San Francisco, pas un bout de ce monde qui ne porte mon empreinte digitale et mon calcanéum sur le dos des gratte-ciel et ma trace dans le scintillement des gemmes. Qui peut se vanter d'avoir mieux que moi? Virginie, Tennessee, Géorgie, Alabama, putréfaction monstrueuse de révoltes inopérantes, marais de sang putride, trompettes absurdement bouchées, terre rouge, terre sanguine, terre consanguine. Ce qui est à moi aussi, une petite cellule dans le Jura, une petite cellule, la neige la double de barreaux blancs. La neige est un geôlier blanc qui monte la garde devant une prison. Ce qui est à moi, c'est un homme seul, emprisonné de blanc. C'est un homme seul qui défie les cris blancs de la mort blanche. Toussaint, Toussaint, l'ouverture. C'est un homme qui fascine l'épervier blanc de la mort blanche. C'est un homme seul dans la mer inféconde de sable blanc. C'est un moricaud vieux, dressé contre les eaux du ciel. La mort décrit un cercle brillant au-dessus de cet homme. La mort étoile doucement au-dessus de sa tête. La mort souffle folle dans la canaille mûre de ses bras. La mort galope dans la prison comme un cheval blanc. La mort luit dans l'ombre comme des yeux de chat. La mort hoquette comme l'eau sous l'écaille. La mort est un oiseau blessé, la mort décroît, la mort vacille, la mort est un pâturage ombrageux, la mort expire dans une blanche mare de silence. Gonflement de nuit aux quatre coins de ce petit matin, soubresaut de mort figée, destin tenace, cri debout de terre muette. La splendeur de ce sang n'éclatera-t-elle point?
Through all the sorrow of the sorrow songs, there breathes a hope, a faith in the ultimate justice of things. The minor cadences of despair change often to triumph and calm confidence. Sometimes it is faith in life, sometimes a faith in death, sometimes assurance of boundless justice in some fair world beyond. But whichever it is, the meaning is always clear. That sometime, somewhere, men will judge men by their souls and not by their skins. Is such a hope justified? Is a sorrow song sing true? The silently growing assumption of this age is that the probation of races is past, and that the backward races of today are a proven inefficiency and not worth the saving. Such an assumption is the arrogance of peoples irreverent toward time and ignorant of the deeds of men. 1,000 years ago, such an assumption, easily possible, would have made it difficult for the Teuton to prove his right to live. 2,000 years ago, such dogmatism, readily welcome, would have scouted the idea of blonde races ever leading civilization. So woefully unorganized is sociological knowledge that the meaning of progress, the meaning of swift and slow in human doing, and the limits of human perfectibility are veiled, unanswered sphinxes on the shores of science. Why should Aeschylus have sung 2,000 years before Shakespeare was born? Why has civilization flourished in Europe and flickered, flamed, and died in Africa? So long as the world stands meekly dumb before such questions, shall this notion proclaim its ignorance and unhallowed prejudices by denying freedom of opportunity to those who brought the sorrow songs to the seats of the mighty. Your country. How came it yours? Before the pilgrims landed, we were here. Here we have brought our three gifts and mingled them with yours. A gift of story and song, soft, stirring melody in an ill-harmonized and unmelodious land. The gift of sweat and brawn to beat back the wilderness, conquer the soil, and lay the foundations of the vast economic empire 200 years earlier than your weak hands could have done it. The third, a gift of spirit. Around us, this history of the land has centered for thrice 100 years. Out of the nation's heart, we have called all that was best to throttle and subdue all that was worse. Fire and blood, prayer and sacrifice have billowed over this people, and they have found peace only in the altars of the God of right. Nor has our gift of the Spirit been merely passive. Actively, we have woven ourselves with the very warp and woof of this nation. We fought their battles, shared their sorrow, mingled our blood with theirs, and generation after generation have pleaded with a headstrong, careless people to despise not justice, mercy, and truth, lest the nation be smitten with a curse. Our song, our toil, our cheer, and warning have been given to this nation in blood brotherhood. Are not these gifts worth the giving? Is not this work and striving? Would America have been America without her Negro people? The Negro speaks of rivers. I've known rivers. I've known rivers ancient as the world and older than the flow of human blood and human veins. My soul has grown deep like the rivers. I bathed in the Euphrates when dawns were young. I built my hut near the Congo when it loved me to sleep. I looked upon the Nile and raised the pyramids above it. I heard the singing of the Mississippi when Abe Lincoln went down to New Orleans, and I've seen its muddy bosom turn all golden in the sunset. I've known rivers, ancient, dusky rivers. My soul has grown deep like the rivers.
Deixa passar o meu povo. Noite morna de Moçambique e sons longínquos de marimba chegam até mim, certos e constantes. Vindos não sei de onde, em minha casa de madeira e zinco, abro o rádio e deixo-me embalar. As vozes da América remexem a alma e os nervos, e Robinson e Marian cantam para mim. espirituais negros de Harlem, let my people go. Oh, deixa passar o meu povo, deixa passar o meu povo, dizem. E eu abro os olhos e já não posso dormir. Dentro de mim, Solomon Anderson e Paul. E não são doces vozes de embalo. Let my people go. Nervosamente, eu sento-me à mesa e escrevo. Dentro de mim, deixa passar o meu povo, ou let my people go. E já não sou mais que instrumento do meu sangue em turbilhão, com Marian me ajudando com sua voz profunda, minha irmã. Escrevo. Na minha mesa, vultos familiares se vêm debruçar. Minha mãe, de mãos rudes e rosto cansado e revoltas, dores, humilhações, tatuando de negro virgem papel branco. E Paulo, que não conheço, mas é do mesmo sangue e da mesma seiva amada de Moçambique. E misérias, janelas gradeadas, adeus de magaíças, algodoais, o meu inesquecível companheiro branco. E Zé, meu irmão, e Saúl, e tu, amigo de doce olhar azul, pegando na minha mão e me obrigando a escrever com o fel que me vem da revolta. Todos vêm debruçar sobre o meu ombro, enquanto escrevo noite adiante, com Marian e Robinson, vigiando pelo olho luminoso de raiva. Let my people go, let my people go. E enquanto me vierem de Harlem, vozes de lamentação e meus vultos familiares me visitarem em longas noites de insônia, não poderei deixar-me embalar pela música fútil das valsas de Strauss. Escreverei, com Robinson e Marian gritando comigo, let my people go, ou deixa passar o meu povo.
Stand and read with me, Landfolk by Commodore. At the back of your sheet, I'm going to read the italic. Please read in your own time. The response. Landfolk. I cannot speak the languages spoken in that vessel. Cannot read the beads songs. I know this only. We straightened our backs and faced the simplicity of new days with flames. Know the lament of our loss must warm us again and again down in the belly of the whale. I know this one. Thank you.
Wrap up the ceremony, we'd like everybody please to rise as they're able and sing along Siyahamba as the performers up here on the dais are going to be throwing rosemary, the herb of memory, into the river. So if everybody please could join with Anne and the Magnolia Singers singing Siyahamba as the people on the dais here throw some rosemary into the Ashley River. Thank you.
We are marching in the line.